What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another video on Path of Exile 2. Hope you're all doing very, very well. If you didn't know, it's launching tomorrow. We got 15 hours left. And I want to take this time to help any of you guys understand how each of the new classes works and the ascendancies and what build you might want to try and make, especially if you're a new player. And if you haven't played Path of Exile 1 ever, I can help to walk you through each individual class and the ascendancies and what they kind of do, to help give you an understanding of the flavor that's out there and what sort of style you might like to play, because we're all different. We all love to play different styles of game, and GGG has done a really good job of providing that within the different classes. So we're going to talk about the ascendancies, the classes. I'm going to talk about the passive skill tree. I know it's daunting for new players, but I'm going to give you a little mock skill tree on a potential build that you could do. And then we're also going to talk about the gems. This is another website where you can check out and make your own kind of mock build. This is something you might want to do tomorrow when you wake up before you actually get into the game. And I would encourage you to actually take the time to look into this stuff a little bit, just a couple of videos, or check out maybe one of these websites that I'm going to link down below, because I promise you, if you get into the game and you pick a class and then you pick an ascendancy and you realize once you get to level 35 or something that you really don't like it, you can't re-roll these things. So you're going to have to start a brand new character. You're probably not going to like that. So let's just jump right into it, okay? Those are the three big things I'm going to talk about: the classes, the passive tree, and builds. You need to put all three of them together in order to create sort of the game that you're looking for, okay? So it starts with the classes, and I'm going to talk exactly through all of them and the ascendancies. So the first one is the Sorcerer, okay? The Sorceress. She's got two ascendancies. The Sorceress is like the main elemental spellcaster in the game, okay? We got fire, cold, lightning. Those are the big elements that she's in control of, okay? The first ascendancy for the Sorceress is called the Stormweaver, and it's going to incorporate, basically, it's going to focus on cold and lightning. You can freeze and you can chill enemies, basically no matter what damage type you're doing. You're going to be able to create elemental storms depending on the damage type that you're rolling. So if you like the style of that, if you like having like a ranged caster mage archetype where you're creating elemental storms and you're blasting everybody, then this is probably the idea that you should be going for. The other ascendancy for the Sorceress is the Chronomancer. This one is a little bit different. It's all about controlling time. You can like cool down some very powerful abilities that you have. Like, let's say you have an ability called like Meteor and it's got a 10-second cooldown. You could cast Meteor and then you could like time snap that ability back and then cast it again for like some devastating damage. So it can freeze all nearby enemies. You can create a temporal rift. It's got a lot to do with speed, cast speed, resetting your cooldowns, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in a little bit more dynamic mage kind of gameplay, Sorceress gameplay, then this might be for you as well. Okay? That's the Sorcerer in a nutshell. That's your main spellcaster in the game. Let's go on. The Warrior. The Warrior is your big beef boy, okay? That's the main physical damage melee class in the game. If you're looking for big, upfront, tanky melee gameplay, this is for you, okay? The Titan is the first ascendancy that you're going to be choosing when you get in there. This kind of focuses on heavy stuns on enemies. You've got huge slams that create big aftershocks, and it's very, very durable. You can get like 15% more max life on one of the ascendancy nodes, so it's very, very tough, okay? The other ascendancy is Warbringer. This one focuses a little bit more on armor breaking enemies. You can actually break armor below 0, which is a really cool one on imploding impacts. And then it's got totems, it's got ancestral spirits, it's got really, really high block chance if you want it, so you can do some really cool shield gameplay there as well. So you can pick and choose kind of which one you want, but that is the melee kind of warrior archetype, and if you're interested in that gameplay loop, this is definitely for you, okay? The Ranger. The next class, so the Ranger is your standard kind of bow user in the game. It's got high mobility. It's your typical archer style. It's got like rain of arrows, and it's got a bunch of mobility spells now, which is really cool, or abilities, I guess, where you like shoot an arrow and you kind of vault backwards to create distance. You can slow enemies with like vines and stuff. It's very cool. So if you're interested in sort of that typical Legolas archer kind of gameplay style, this is for you. The Deadeye Ascendancy focuses even more so on extra projectiles, the extra range. It even has a couple of Frenzy Charge nodes, which are very different in Path of Exile 2 than they were in Path of Exile 1. In Path of Exile 2, Frenzy Charges basically just buff certain abilities. There are certain, a lot of ranged abilities, actually, that get significantly buffed if you have Frenzy Charges. So that might be something that's interesting to you. But yeah, all about projectiles And if that's kind of what you're interested in, you can go for that. Pathfinder is the other ascendancy available for Ranger. This has got like a little bit more niche going on. It's like there's poisonous concoction you could do. Sorry, there's the entire concoction area where you could do poison, lightning, cold, fire, or bleeding. So you could pick and then you're basically throwing your mana flask at enemies. It has a lot of flask synergy. You can get 50% more flask charges gained, which is really, really big. That's an awesome passive to get. It's a little different. It's a little bit wonkier. Probably not for beginners, if I'm honest. It's a little bit less beginner friendly. If you're thinking about the Ranger, then the Deadeye would be probably the obvious choice if you're a new player. Okay, just to be totally honest about that. Let's go to the Witch. The Witch is your typical summoner minion archetype. It's the main sort of summoner minion archetype class. It also has access to things like occult magic, like curses and chaos spells and all that kind of stuff. You can debuff your enemies, you can buff your minions, a lot of really cool stuff like that. Now, if we look at the ascendancies, we got the Blood Mage, which kind of turns you into like Vladimir from League of Legends, if you guys play that game. But basically, you are you create these life remnants, so your spells are going to cost health now as well as mana, but you're going to be able to heal yourself like way above your maximum HP, and then you can get damage based on your maximum HP, which is super cool. You get spell leech, 10% spell leech, which is really strong. You can have infinite curse duration. A lot of really cool things going on there, but it's kind of like a Vladimir style blood-sucking vampire theme. So if that's kind of what you're interested in, that's where that ascendancy can take you. And then the Infernalist is the other witch ascendancy. This is much more related to fire, and you have a lot of really interesting nodes. You can go demon form, where you literally transform into a demon. Sorry, it's kind of small there. You transform into a demon. You can get the demon dog, which is the Hellhound. He reduces your damage taken. There's some really cool conversion stuff where cold damage taken as fire damage, lightning damage taken as fire damage. So then you can like invest heavily into fire resistance and block a lot of the other elemental damage that you would have taken. Some interesting stuff going on in this tree. It's a little bit more complicated, I would say. But there are some simple summons that you get, like the Hellhound. So if you want to just do like a full summoning build, you could do that as an Infernalist and focus on your Hellhound and just making yourself really tanky, and then you just like buff your minions. So a couple choices there for the Witch that are very, very different from one another. But again, that's the main kind of summoning archetype spellcaster in the game, okay? The Mercenary is the other ranged character besides the Ranger, of course. So the Mercenary, a little bit different, uses crossbows instead of bows. They have a reload and an ammo mechanic. So the bow can just keep firing over and over and over again. The crossbow has like different ammo types, like an exploding grenade and like a freezing grenade, a shocking grenade. And you can do a bunch of really cool combos with these different ammo types, but you do have to reload them and kind of swap in between ammo types. It's a very different kind of playstyle, but it's kind of like you're playing a shooter, you're almost like a first-person shooter, but in a third-person game. It's very cool. You have really cool combos like throwing out like a gas grenade and then exploding that gas grenade with an exploding shell. Like very, very cool combo stuff. First ascendancy here is the Witch Hunter. This is a very, very cool ascendancy. This is probably going to be one of the most popular ascendancies, I think, I would say across the board. I think a lot of people are looking at playing Mercenary, and the Witch Hunter is very simple. You get something called Culling Strike and Decimating Strike, excuse me. Culling Strike will execute enemies that are very low on health. Decimating Strike will take a chunk of an enemy's health off at the very beginning of a fight. So at the two bookends of a fight, you can just kind of shrink the enemy's health bar a lot. And that is going to be amazing for boss fights, incredible for boss fights, and very, very good for like rare enemies. Anybody with a lot of health, this is going to be massive. So you also get the Sorcery Ward, which blocks elemental damage at the cost of armor and evasion rating. There's a lot of really cool things going on with the Witch Hunter, and I think just the Culling Strike, Decimating Strike combo is going to be a lot of damage that people are going to be excited to try out. So that's the first ascendancy. The second ascendancy is the Gemling Legionnaire. This is like by far the most unique ascendancy that we've ever seen, either in Path of Exile 1 or now in Path of Exile 2. It's all about like your skills and your gems, and it has nothing to do with so like it doesn't give you any like new abilities, or it doesn't have to do with like, you know, fire damage or anything. It just is it's kind of all utility based. So quality of skills, level of skills, the cost of skills going down. You get 3 additional skill slots, which is really cool. You can use 2 copies of the same support gem in different skills. If you don't know, in Path of Exile 2, you can only use 1 copy of each support gem across your entire build. So if you want to have faster attacks, for example, you can only use that once. But the Gemling Legionnaire can use that twice. And he can use multiple projectiles twice. And he can use, like, you can see how crazy that might get really quickly. So some very unique nodes, very cool, but maybe not as obvious about how powerful they are right off the bat compared to something like Decimating Strike or Culling Strike, which are just obviously strong. You understand why they're strong. I think that the Gemling Legionnaire might end up being popular, but only for people who really know what they're doing. So if you're thinking of playing the Mercenary, I would probably just go Witch Hunter if you wanted to be safe, okay? Last one is the Monk. The Monk is basically your fast, agile, rogue kind of melee fighter. It's that archetype, okay? It's a little glass cannon. It's very, very strong mobility. It can dash all over the battlefield and do tons of damage to everybody, which is really cool. And but it can be a little bit weak depending on what you're building, so you got to be careful with it. The first ascendancy is the Invoker. It's kind of like the light side. There's like a light versus dark thing going on. The Invoker is the good one, and then the Acolyte of Cthulhu, or Chayula, sorry, is Cthulhu. The Acolyte of Chayula is kind of like the bad one, but we'll get to that in a second. The first one has a lot to do with elemental damage. This guy's kind of like the Storm Sorceress, but in melee form, okay? You'll be doing, like, critical strikes will send out these waves of elemental damage depending on which elemental type you struck with. Really cool stuff like that. You get Unbound Avatar, where you just, like, explode and do tons of damage to enemies. So very, very cool stuff like there. Focus on lightning and cold once again. That is a good ascendancy. The other one is Acolyte of Chayula. Once again, this is very unique and interesting. Has a lot to do with chaos damage. You get instant mana leech, and your mana leech can recover your energy shield. I think these 2 nodes right here are massive. You can double your chaos resistance if you want to. A lot of chaos related nodes here that are very, very powerful. And there's going to be lots of builds that work very well with this ascendancy. I would say between the 2 ascendancies, if you're thinking of rolling Monk, the easiest, most obvious one is going to be the Invoker, I think, okay? And like I said, for the Mercenary, the Witch Hunter, I think, is the easier one there. Between the 2 Witch ascendancies, I think the Infernalist is probably a little bit easier to pilot. Between the Ranger ascendancies, I think the Deadeye is going to be easier to pilot if you're looking at just the easiest one to think about. If you're thinking about the Warrior, I think that it's really a choice of what you want to do. If you want, like, big blocks or if you want big slams, it's kind of really up to you. They're both kind of simple in their execution, but it just depends kind of what you want out of them, okay? And then when it comes to the Sorceress, I think the easier of the 2 ascendancies is going to be the Stormweaver, just because it's very much like the Monk, right? Where he's summoning, he's sending out these storms of elemental damage, okay? Those are the ascendancies. Those are the classes to help you get an idea of, like, an archetype that you might be interested in, okay? I know that took a while, but I wanted to make sure I really broke down why each of those ascendancies and classes, like what they did, to help you guys understand. Now, if you're thinking about, okay, Zuko, I have found my ascendancy, my class. I want to be a big melee bro. I think I'm going to choose Titan, okay? So you're going to be a warrior, and you're going to choose Titan as your ascendancy. What do we do now? We need to think of an ability that we really want to play around with. So if you're going to go with this ascendancy, with this class, you're looking at big slams, okay? So you might want to do like a big slam build, and you can start looking at that over here. But if you look at the tree, you can also start to see, okay, we're going to go, let's say we go with the warrior. I'll show this in a second, but let's say you went with the warrior. You're going to start on this side of the tree. You're going to try and look up all the nodes over here that say slam or have something to do with slams or aftershocks, okay? We could type in aftershock as well. And you'll be able to do this in the game. This is sort of a bricked version of the passive tree. It'll be much better once you get into the real game. But you can see it highlights some of these words, right? 40% increased aftershock effect. You can start looking for physical damage nodes. You can look for aftershock. You can look for slam. Now that you know that that's kind of the skill that you're going to be going for, one of the slam skills. And there are quite a few of them, right? If I just type in like slam here, There's rolling slam, there's furious slam, there's supercharged slam, there's leap slam. I mean, you have so many choices of different skills that you want to try. There's sunder. You can start to craft a build around a couple of those different slams and potentially like breaking armor maybe, because that's something that you can do as a melee warrior. And you can sort of see how this starts to come together, right? You're going to combine this ascendancy tree with the passive tree that you've started with here, where you're grabbing fizz damage, you're increasing the stun buildup potentially, right, which helps you break armor more easily, break 25% increased armor right there, and then you get to the aftershock damage, and then you get to the slams over here, and then maybe there's a node that is just going to buff mace damage. You can see that's this whole wheel at 20% more damage with maces, so you can kind of work your way from the center of the tree all the way out to here and try and get to that stuff, and you're going to combine these passives with the ascendancy, and then you're also going to obviously have the gems over here and the skills that you're actually using. You're going to have to work on all three of them to craft whatever build you're looking at. And there's going to be people who are going to give you build guides for whatever you want, and that's cool. You can follow whatever build guides you want. What I'm just going to say right now as a little disclaimer is that we don't know what's in most of this passive tree. You can see how this is all kind of pinkish red. All the pinkish red on the passive tree is stuff that we don't know. We're going to know tomorrow once we open it, but like this is going to take a little bit of work, and nobody really knows what the best build is going to be. So I would just highly recommend, once again, find something that you like. Find an ascendancy that you're really attracted to. Find a skill that you're really attracted to and build around that. And that way you're going to actually be having fun, because you're going to be playing something that you're like, oh, I just love the idea of this monk just dashing all over the place, spewing out elemental damage. Like, if that's what you like to do, then find a skill and find that ascendancy and just do it and come up with a build as you go, right? Here's an example of a build really quickly. I've got a Pathfinder here, and I'm going to do like a poison build. So there's 2 poison nodes here that significantly buff my poisons. Very, very, very good, okay? This doubles the number of poisons that I can inflict on people. And then I'm just going to type in poison, and I'm going to look for the poison nodes on the tree. And you can see they're highlighted in red. I can get an additional poison over here. I can get 60% increased effective poisons of enemies that are not poisoned yet. So that's like the first time you hit them. There's 30% increased effective poison. And then I can add an additional poison over here as well. So now I already know that my pathing for this kind of a character is kind of going to take me here. Let me get the pen up for a sec. Really quickly here, let me get rid of this, get the Madden going on here. I'm gonna start here, and I'm probably gonna path like something like this, and I know, okay, my first node is like over here that I'm looking for, so I'm probably gonna go like this, gonna grab that node, and then I could like work my way up here potentially. I don't know if this is gonna be efficient or not, probably not, but we could work over to here and then come down and grab that node, and then you work up to here, grab this other node, and then you're gonna come back down this pathway, and you go up here, and then you can grab these nodes up here, okay? So I already know, I have an idea, somewhat of an idea of where my pathing is going to take me, and we're going to get 122 of these different nodes that we can actually allocate. So don't worry if you make some mistakes early on. Just put the nodes where you think they should go based on the build that you think you're going to be doing, right? If you're doing a slam build, again, you want physical damage, armor breaking, yada, yada, right? If you're doing like a poison bow build, you're probably using some of the bow skills. If I just type in bow, I've got like bow shot, snipe. We have gas arrow. You know, that's going to be a poison one. You could make rain of arrows become a poison spell by adding poison stuff on. You get toxic growth, vine arrow. So you can use all of these abilities here. You know that you're going to be using those already, and you kind of have an idea of where your pathing is going to go. That's going to be good for you. That's kind of all you need, and that's all I'm suggesting. I think that it just would be helpful for any new players, especially, to make sure that you are coming up with some semblance of an idea of a build that you want to run. Don't run into this game without having somewhat of an idea of where you're going to go, because inevitably you're going to start a character and you're going to be like, I don't know what I want to play. I'll just play a sorceress. Okay, cool. I'm playing a sorceress. And then you're like, okay, I kind of like the spellcasting. It's kind of okay. I'm not in love with it, but I kind of like it. And then you like get to the ascendancy trial. You do the ascendancy trial, and then you're like, okay, I can become a stormweaver or a chronomancer. I'm like, I don't like either of those. I hate both of these options. And you're like, Freg, I should have like become a witch because I really wanted to be like a I really wanted to be a blood mage, or I really wanted to be an infernalist. And you're like, shoot, I wasn't thinking about it that much when I first started. So I just want to help alleviate that problem for some of you guys so that you don't blow a whole bunch of time on one spec or one class and then end up regretting it. You don't want to regret it, okay? That's the main thing. That's a summary of everything I would say. Pick a class archetype that you like, something that you like. I want to be a big slam guy. I want to be a fast elemental monk. I want to be a mobile ranger. Pick an archetype that you like, okay? Find a skill that you really enjoy using, that you could use a lot and not get bored of it or whatever, and then find the passives in the tree to kind of support the beginnings of a build that you'll flesh out later once you actually play the game. And then I think you're going to be much happier playing this game. I think if you don't do any of these things and you just go in completely blind, I think you're going to be in a bit of trouble. So that's it for me. If you guys have any questions about PoE 2, I'm going to be streaming it tomorrow for a huge 12-hour stream, twitch.tv/SukoVibes. Come check it out. And we're going to be having a blast. And if you have any questions about the game, come ask me, because I've sort of versed myself in the game now, and I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Love you all. See you in the next one.